The space race was a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. It started in the 1950s and lasted until the early 1970s. Both countries wanted to prove their technological superiority. They did this by trying to be the first to achieve major milestones in space exploration. The space race was about more than just rockets and satellites. It was a symbolic battle between two superpowers with very different ideologies. The space race took place during the Cold War. This was a period of intense rivalry and mistrust between the United States and the Soviet Union. Both countries had nuclear weapons. They were constantly trying to outdo each other in terms of military strength, economic power, and technological innovation. The space race was a very public and visible arena for this competition. The stakes were high in the space race. Success in space was seen as a sign of national strength and technological prowess. It also had important implications for national security. The ability to launch satellites and spacecraft gave countries an advantage in terms of intelligence gathering, communication, and potentially even military operations. The space race captured the imagination of people around the world. It inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and dreamers. The Soviet Union struck the first blow in the space race. In 1957, they launched Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite to orbit the Earth. This achievement sent shockwaves through the United States. It raised fears that the Soviet Union was ahead in the race to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs. These missiles could deliver nuclear weapons. The launch of Sputnik 1 was a major propaganda victory for the Soviet Union. It demonstrated their technological capabilities to the world. It also highlighted the perceived gap between the Soviet Union and the United States in science and engineering. The Soviet Union followed up on the success of Sputnik 1 with a series of other impressive achievements. They launched the first animal into orbit, the dog Laika. They also launched the first man into space, Yuri Gagarin. These early Soviet successes in the space race had a profound impact on the United States. They galvanized the American public and government into action. The United States was determined to catch up to and surpass the Soviet Union in space exploration. In response to the Soviet Union's early lead in the space race, the United States launched Project Mercury. The goal of this program was to put a man into space and return him safely to Earth. Project Mercury was a critical first step for the United States in the space race. On May 5, 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American in space. He piloted the Freedom 7 spacecraft on a 15-minute suborbital flight. Shepard's flight was a much-needed morale boost for the United States. It showed that the country was capable of competing with the Soviet Union in space. John Glenn became the first American to orbit the Earth in 1962. He circled the planet 3 times in the Friendship 7 spacecraft. Project Mercury was a success for the United States. It paved the way for more ambitious human spaceflight programs. It also helped to close the gap between the United States and the Soviet Union in the space race. Section 4. Reaching for Higher Goals, Project Gemini, and the Path to the Moon. Building upon the successes of Project Mercury, the United States launched Project Gemini. The goal of this program was to develop the technology and skills needed for a lunar landing. This included developing spacecraft that could carry 2 astronauts. They also practiced spacewalks and rendezvous and docking maneuvers. These are all essential for a mission to the moon. Project Gemini was also notable for its scientific experiments. Astronauts conducted medical studies. They also took photographs of Earth from space. This helped to advance our understanding of our planet. Project Gemini was a crucial stepping stone on the path to the moon. It allowed the United States to test and refine the technologies and techniques that would be needed for the Apollo missions. Section 5. The Giant Leap Project Apollo and the Moon Landing. Project Apollo was the culmination of the United States' efforts in the space race. President John F. Kennedy challenged the nation to land a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. He said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard." Project Apollo was a massive undertaking. It involved the work of hundreds of thousands of engineers, scientists, and technicians. The Apollo spacecraft was the most complex machine ever built at the time. It consisted of 3 modules: the command module, the service module, and the lunar module. On July 20, 1969, the Apollo 11 mission achieved President Kennedy's goal. Neil Armstrong became the first person to walk on the moon. He was joined by Buzz Aldrin. Michael Collins remained in lunar orbit aboard the command module. The Apollo 11 mission was a defining moment in human history. It was a testament to the power of human ingenuity and determination. Section 6. Heroes of the Space Race, Visionaries and Pioneers. The space race produced many heroes. President John F. Kennedy provided the vision and leadership that made the Apollo program possible. He inspired a generation of Americans to believe that anything was possible. Wernher von Braun was a German rocket scientist who played a key role in developing the Saturn V rocket. This was the launch vehicle that carried the Apollo astronauts to the moon. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins were the crew of the Apollo 11 mission. They made history by landing on the moon and returning safely to Earth. There were many other astronauts who contributed to the success of the space race. They risked their lives to explore the unknown. The space race was a testament to the courage, skill, and dedication of all these individuals. Section 7. Legacy of the Space Race, a Giant Leap for Humankind. The space race had a profound impact on science, technology, and international relations. It led to the development of countless new technologies, including transistors, integrated circuits, and digital computers. It also inspired generations of scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. The space race also had a significant impact on international relations. It helped to ease tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. It led to the signing of the Outer Space Treaty in 1967. This treaty prohibits the placement of